And we'll move on to the Fellowship Tuition Entry tab. Again, there's a skeleton here. GFS indicates the status is in progress, and it will be when we save the line, then it will change the status to draft. Expand this to do your entry. Tuition in this case is still part of the SGF award, so we'll use the same identifier. The tuition total to be awarded for the full year of study is $42,480. And the student is expected to be enrolled for all 4 quarters. Again, we're going to look up the item type. And we're going to be looking to use the same PTA as in our fellowship stipend. This time, you'll notice that the charge priority list is much more limited. TU only is the appropriate charge priority. And we can again copy to all terms. If you're unsure of any of the data associated with the line, you should certainly save it as draft. You can easily update the amounts, the item types, notes, add an additional approver while the line is still in draft status. Do not submit it until you have verified its accuracy and completeness. Let's finalize the 3-8 entries for this student and submit them to workflow for review by the assigned home department and financial approvers. What you need to do here in each case is to select the line by the checkbox on the right. When you select one or more lines, even if they are on different tabs, the save action becomes available, and the save and submit action becomes available, turning from gray to red. Be aware that only the selected lines will be submitted when you then click the action, but all lines entered for this student will be saved. GFS executes a number of validations on the submitted lines. If no errors are found, it updates the line status to pending approval. And again, it gives you confirmation that it's saved correctly. So pending approval is your confirmation that the lines were actually sent to workflow. Also notice The all aid summary has now been updated to include the amounts for lines that are now pending approval. You may again expand any of these lines, scroll down to the workflow transaction information, and now you will see some additional information. A transaction ID has been generated by the system. The status is pending. The updated date and time in this case indicates your submission time, that as approvers take action, that date and time will change. And your information as the originator will show as well. As approvers take action, or after all approvers have taken action, you'll have a final updated date and time as well as, hopefully, a transaction status of approved. Before we move on to assistantships, let's discuss the info-only option, which I intentionally skipped over previously. So-called info-only lines represent third-party sponsored fellowships or other non-Stanford financial aid for a graduate student. These fellowships must be recorded in GFS per the policy and are considered to be part of a student's total aid package. When you select info only during aid entry of a fellowship, stipend, or tuition, GFS does not generate the term detail lines, and there is no item type or PTA requirement for aid entry. However, you should use the notes field to identify the agency or source of the funding. It is particularly important to record whether the outside funding is for health insurance, so the appropriate Cardinal Care subsidy will be calculated. Info-only lines must also be saved and submitted to workflow, as they require review and approval by the Home Department approver. However, because they lack item types and PTAs, the transactions are not routed for financial approval. Another important point: info-only lines are never processed by GFS for disbursement to the student account or for payment to the student. To recap, submitted info-only lines do count as part of the student's total aid package. That is, the amounts are added into the student's all aid summary for the aid year. Let's turn our attention now to assistantships, which you will recall are a form of employment. Assistantships compensate graduate students with salary paid for work performed and carry a side benefit of tuition allowance, also known as TAL. It is important, before entering an assistantship for a graduate student, you will need to know the PTA and verify that the appropriate item types exist for both the assistantship salary and the TAL. Let's practice some item type lookups now. We're going to return to the GFS Center. And under the GFS menu, we'll select Lookup Item Type. This links you to a PeopleSoft page. The PTAO item type lookup. You're going to enter the award, in this case PAHXX, project 119 2826 and task 100. Click search. Take a look. I'll say it again. When reviewing results, confirm that both the salary and tuition allowance are in the list. And be careful, because TU only, charge priority, is used for both fellowship tuition and tuition allowance. So it's important to read the item descriptions to be sure you pick up tuition allowance and avoid confusion. Return to the GFS Center and then click the View Enter Grad Student Aid once again and search for your student. This student is to be given a research assistantship for 20 hours a week, which is 50% FTE, in the Department of Biology, beginning in the winter term and continuing through spring. Funding of the assistantship will come from a department PTA. Begin your entry on the Assistantship Salary tab. Notice this time the aid sequence begins with the letters AST